The Prosperity Vortex is not just money, it's the balance. It's the balance of mind, body, and spirit. Because if we're out of balance in any of those places, then the money doesn't flow. But we have to remember that this is where people get, all these beliefs and stuff that come up around money. So we have to look at the Prosperity Vortex as balance of mind, body, and spirit, which includes money.
Hi, everybody. I am so excited to have Kimberly Maska as a guest today. And Kimberly is an extremely interesting person. And the reason why I wanted to have her on the show today is because of her understanding with financial blockages. And this seems to be a really common topic. In my work, I have people constantly asking me about how to let go of or what is their financial blockages. And so I was chatting with Kimberly the other day, and we started talking about this, and I thought that this would be, I think it's a necessary topic for it to be heard because so many people are struggling with it. So, Kimberly, can you give us just a little bit about your background and what you do, and then we'll dive into this wonderful topic.
Yeah. So my in my current life, I help spiritual entrepreneurs, light workers, just live their purpose and being able to live their purpose, find their abundance by creating their spiritual business, which all ties together with the money piece, which is how I've become such the money expert. Because I used to have my clients go through the program and then they would get stuck. And I'm like, I don't understand why they're stuck. And the biggest thing was the money part. So I started diving into it. And me personally, in my past life, worked on Wall Street, had this crazy life where I helped co-create a $165 million Wall Street firm. So that money thing feels familiar, yet my relationship with money needed so much development as well. So I've gone through it as like a big lesson for myself about how to have a beautiful relationship with it. And then I see it in my clients. And then every light worker I meet has money issues. So it's become my hot topic.
Yeah. Well, this profession it's interesting because you don't go to college to be a psychic. They don't have the business courses to figure out how to work through these issues in establishing a business. But I want to talk about that later on in the program. But I also do want to mention that you are a 2-time international best-selling author. I'm calling you offer. Apparently I can't speak. But so can you tell us a little bit about the books that you've written?
Absolutely. So I've got 2 of them. They're behind me. I see a glare on the one over on the side. But one is called Are You a Spiritual Entrepreneur? It was the first book that I created really just to get my name out there and start talking about what I talk about. And so it's just a little kind of like guidebook about how do you find those steps to your success? Where could your blocks be? And then I was called to write another book called Chaos, a Wake-Up Call for Light Workers, right when the whole scandemic stuff started to happen, before we understood what it was. Like we really thought something was really big happening until we realized, just not that it wasn't big, but we understand more about what it is now. And so that prompted me to write the book on this side, which is the Chaos, a Wake-Up Call for Light Workers. And it's really a call for us to step up into our role. And that still exists because we have the Great Awakening. And so we need light workers out there more than ever. And so it's about that whole understanding that what do you have to get over those fears and things so that you can fully step out. And my third book is in the process. That's actually going to be part of my community that I'm building. People get access to that, which is how to start a spiritual business, is coming out pretty quick too.
Good. Okay, so the topic, the official topic of this discussion is living in the prosperity vortex. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. So for me, the Prosperity Vortex is not just money. It's the balance. It's the balance of mind, body, and spirit. Because if we're out of balance in any of those places, then the money doesn't flow. But we have to remember that this is where people get, I don't know, all these beliefs and stuff that come up around money. People say, well, it's not just about the money, especially the light workers want to say it's not just about the money. I don't care how much money I have. I don't care. And to me, that's actually kind of selfish, because the money isn't just about you. So we have to look at the prosperity vortex as balance of mind, body, and spirit, which includes money. It's part of it, because you can't live your best life if you're in scarcity and scrambling for money. So it includes money. Now, on the flip side, could there be very wealthy people that are lacking consciousness and morals and everything else? Absolutely. So I'm not saying that it's all about the money. It's not just anyone who has money is prosperous. They just happen to have a lot of money, but they could be ill. They could be just a mess. We all know those people. And so that's not what we're talking about, but we are talking about that balance, mind, body, and spirit. It does include the money, and the money, because it's energy, should just be allowed to flow so that you're always in divine flow.
So, how do you address when people, spiritual people especially, have this belief system that you shouldn't be charging for your services?
Oh, that one drives me nuts. So
Yes, yeah, me too. That's why I'm going to have you address it.
oh goodness. So, well, here's the thing. Inevitably, somebody who just gets very angry with me about the whole money spiritual thing, they'll come at me and they'll start throwing out biblical quotes and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it just shows me you don't actually understand what it all means. And so we have to really get the idea that there's an energy exchange, and it's just energy. I think people get so hung up on it because they see money as a thing. They're like, it's a thing I have to get and obtain. And if I have the thing, someone else doesn't have the thing. And that's not how it works. And because it's energy and we can allow it to flow, you can have as much as you want. There's no limit. And we get really caught. I have a dear friend the other day, we were talking about something, and I think she said something about an $88 million house. And she says, when is enough is enough? And I'm like, but it's energy. It's just allow it to come in. But we get caught in this idea of like, oh, if they have that much money, they must have done something. Like all these beliefs start coming in, and we start to see like, well, if they have all that money, why don't these other people have money? And so we're not understanding what money really is. And that's why we get so caught in it. So as light workers, how else are we going to thrive? So the options are, we can work in a job we can't stand and have our soul sucked dry to get a paycheck, which I think is a very dangerous thing to do, because you're relying on other people, some institution to hand you a check, which to me is terrifying. I want to be in control of my own income. And so we can do that, or we can live our purpose, love what we do, allow the energy exchange to flow, and then completely thrive. And so I wish people could really get that. And I know it's just because of all the beliefs and all the things we've been taught over the years that gets us stuck, but it's just energy. So allow it to flow.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I don't even really understand, where did this whole belief system come from? Because it's been around forever. I mean, when I was doing massage therapy, 30 years ago, it was a thing. Well, how much do you charge? And you shouldn't be charging if you're giving a gift and all of this. And even recently, I've had people, like when I'm a guest on a podcast, and then of course I shouldn't read the comments, but I do, and then, and you'll see some kind of comment on there that says, if you're a real person that's doing this work, you shouldn't be charging, and so it is hard for people like us to be able to balance and understand, but we also have expenses, we have to have something that we can either barter or, pay for. And unfortunately, in our society, it does require this thing called a dollar bill. When you go to the grocery store, you can't trade out for your groceries. You have to give them this thing. And so it is hard for people like us, for some reason, these belief systems that get ingrained. And I don't even understand really how they can be embedded.
I have a theory a little bit because it's just really interesting. Because if you really, not that I'm like a big biblical person or anything, but if you go back and you look at the New Testament, and Catherine Ponder wrote a series of books about the New Testament and all the wealth. Like, it's really about wealth, but it's really been bastardized. Like, if you go read her books, you're like, holy cow, it's all written right here for you. But I kind of feel like we've been told not to charge. We've been told that it's bad. We've been told all this stuff about money. Even if, let's go one step further, even in Hollywood, when you look at Hollywood and what happens? The bad guy always has money. It's the bad guys that do it. Like, we've been conditioned to such a degree, we don't even see the conditioning anymore. But I think we've been so conditioned that way because what would happen if the light workers were thriving? What if we weren't worried about money and being sick and tired and in scarcity all the time? We would be so incredibly powerful. They would not be able to control us. They wouldn't know what to do. But they can control us when we're in scarcity, because they can control us by saying, here's a check. They can control us by them saying, oh, we're going to take care of you, which is terrifying to me for someone to step in that way. But I see it all the time with light workers. But again, I think as we've been conditioned and told that to keep us down, because that way they can control us. Because if we're thriving and our light's able to shine, they literally wouldn't know what to do, because we'd be so powerful. We would begin to realize how powerful we are, and to step into that role of what we're supposed to be doing, shining our light as bright as possible. I think it would be terrifying to those people who are trying to keep us down.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point, because what I was hearing when you were saying that is that it's basically we're being controlled and somebody else is controlling our lives. And I can't have this because I have to wait for a paycheck and they're only going to pay me this much money, $10 an hour, $15 an hour, and I'm going to go do what they tell me to do. And you're having to conform to somebody else's power. And that kind of takes away our own power when we do that. Is that how you see it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're giving it up. We're just like, okay, you can take care of me. Anytime someone wants to take care of you, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so, right, because we're literally just handing over our power. And we've been conditioned that way from the beginning. So it's hard to see it any other way, but we have to switch how we think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And it's an interesting concept to even kind of think about, because we're conditioned. You have to go get an education. You have to be specialized in a certain field, and then you go to work for somebody else.
Yep.
And somebody else tells you if you're a failure or a success. And it is, and they limit you to what you can possibly do. So, okay, so I'm getting motivated to be my own boss. So that is interesting. So what, because I always have the question of, the lack, and people have a tendency to fall into this belief system that they don't have enough. So how do you address something when they feel like, what's this blockage against money and why can't I have more? So what is your answer to that?
So I think what happens, because we don't understand money, we don't understand the rules of money. So I see the rules, two different things. There's the 3D rules, because there is a game of money and you have to understand it. It's a different language and you really need to be paying attention. So there's the 3D part of it so that you understand money there, but there's also some spiritual rules behind it. And the first thing we have to remember is that money comes from us, not to us. It doesn't come from outside of us in. It comes from who we are. So when someone says, I want more, then I'm like, well, then you have to change. I actually say that money is the greatest test of our spiritual strength. Because when we're in divine flow, connected with God's source, infinite intelligence, the creator of the all, whatever the word is you use, when we're in that flow, then things just show up for us. We've all experienced that moment of manifestation where we're like, oh, I have a desire and poof, it manifests. Thank God, not instantaneously, but we get it down to a few days and we're like, okay, there's the thing I was looking for. And that's how we stay in divine flow, by connecting and seeing these things and having our desires and not having any resistance. But we have so much resistance around money because of the conditioning, because of the beliefs. There's all this resistance. So even though we want it, then all the beliefs get piled on, and then we start doubting things, we disconnect from source, and then it doesn't come in. And it's just because it's in here. It's what are our beliefs? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? What are we saying? I like to say that we gossip about money all the time. It's a constant gossip. I don't have enough. Where's the money? I need more. So-and-so has this. What did they do to get it? Like, it's a constant gossip about money. And if you look at money as an energy that wants to be around you and you're building a relationship with it, why would money want to be in your energetic sphere if you're always gossiping about it and complaining about it? So we have to change first so that we can allow it to come in. And if we don't change and we stay how we are, we're going to get the same thing over and over.
Okay, so I'm actually kind of bleeding into your next question, and my question for you is, what's the difference between 3D money and 5D money? But before we are specific with that question, what you're saying is the gossip about money. So let's define, because this is why it may bleed into the 3D way of thinking. And so this is why I'm asking it this way. Because we have that, exactly what you said, that belief system that we have to keep up with other people. And if we can't keep up with other people, then we're not successful, or we're lacking. And so that's kind of what I was hearing you say in that statement. So how do we change that belief system? And what do we need to change about it?
So the beliefs we have are so layered. So there's not like a super easy way. Usually people, I have my program called the Prosperity Vortex. We had our monthly call the other day and someone was like, so how do I'll let this bleed into the 3D, 5D thing. Because someone says, well, how do I create the 5D money? How do I do it? Like, do I open a portal and does it come in? And I'm like, it's not about doing, it's about being. Yeah. So we have to be in the receptive mode to allow it to come in. So it has to do with the being, and the part of the being is, what are we thinking? What are we feeling? What are we saying? And we have to just master that, because being in prosperity and the prosperity vortex is a way of being. It's not just something you do. It's not like you can go take my course and be like, oh, I'm prosperous now. It's like, no. You have to change who you are at the core. So it takes some digging. I mean, it is truly a dark night of the soul process. I've gone through many dark nights of the soul around money. I have more than one instance been down to my last $100, and I've also made millions. And so it's about like becoming who you need to become to earn the right to have the money that you want. So we have to change all the time. So it's a deep dive. It's not, we all know through our awakening, it's not the most exciting, pleasant thing. Like it is, but it isn't, right? Or at the other side, we're like, it's amazing, but man, getting through it is tough. It is tough. And I'll see that with my clients that go through the program. They'll be like, they'll get through it and they'll be like, well, isn't all the money supposed to flow in? I'm like, well, have you done all the work yet? And then what will happen is all the shadows will come in. And so they'll have to go through that to clean it up, because we have to go look at what is actually holding us up from those money beliefs and the money flow.
Yeah. So I'm putting you on the spot. I'm going to keep digging. So, and the reason why I am is because I know that people are listening to what you're saying and they're like, well, but what am I thinking? So can you just give some examples of some basic, pretty common ways of thinking that you're referring to?
Yeah. So probably the most common ones I hear from my clients are that you have to work hard for money. So we forget that it can come from anywhere in any point, way in time. But we're like, well, if I'm going to build my business, it must have to come from my business, or I must have to work really hard, which is really interesting, because as spiritual entrepreneurs, we get caught in that 3D doing. And so we want to do to get the money, but that's not how it works. You actually have to be in the prosperity vortex, in that divine flow, and then it opens up. So it's this kind of weird thing. So it's that working hard is a big one. And they could just be silly things. There's always the whole money is evil stuff. Someone the other day, this was really interesting. Someone I met, not in the spiritual world, she was talking about how the money conversation came up, and she was saying that when she thinks of money, like she literally thinks of people being like victimized in this massive way. She's like, I think about like genocide and all this stuff when she thinks of money. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I was years of hearing people talk about their beliefs around money. That was a new one. Like she was really like stuck in that. And so we have to look at what those are. And they could be simple. My dad loves to say, and despite how I talked about this, my dad is my greatest opportunity for expansion is talking with my father about this stuff. And he loves to say, oh, they must have had money to burn. Silly little things like that just kind of creep in, and it comes from our parents and our family. And so we don't even realize that it's there. what's really interesting is so many times our money beliefs aren't even ours. It's our family and our friends and how we grew up. It's not even ours. It's someone else's. And then we take it on and we forget and we're like, that's what we believe. And it's craziness. So we have to look at that stuff and go dig. What is it? And it takes some digging, and then you'll be fine for a while. And then you'll want to jump into your next income area, whether it's crossing 100K or a year, or crossing 7 figures a year, or whatever it is, then you're going to hit a new one. So in my business now, my focus is on that mid multiple 7 and crossing into 8 figures. And I hit like a ceiling, and I'm like, what is that ceiling? And I just uncovered something new with my coach the other day, because I have a coach. I have several of them to keep me in alignment with everything. And we uncovered something, and it was so strange because I said something and he goes, that kind of sounds like a fear of success thing. And I was like, gosh, you're right. How have I gotten this far? And that is still sitting there. So we done. And there was some, old stuff in there. And so it will happen over and over. So we have to remember that. It's not like it's just one and done. Yeah. This is a lifelong being to be in the prosperity vortex all the time.
Well, and what you're saying is this transition from the 3D to the 5D. So we're going there. But it's interesting, because of what you're saying is that, we have this tendency to think that we address something one time. Number one, let me go back. Going into this 3D way of thinking and understanding and shifting into this has to do with letting go of these old belief systems. And so what you're saying is that, and I can guarantee you, every single one of us, all of our belief systems comes from the way that we were conditioned. Whether it's society or whether it's family, the family beliefs are because of society, the way that you perceive your situation of not having enough, or if you have too much, what is all of this? So to me, it always comes down to these belief systems, wherever they come from. But what you're saying, how significant it is to let those old belief systems go, so that you can get in the flow. And that's what we constantly work on, whether it's specifically financial or anything else that has to do with our everyday lives, and getting into that place of being in that flow of the fifth dimension. So let's, since that was a great little segue, let's talk about the difference between the 3D money and the 5D money.
Yeah, this is one that everyone gets hung up on. Like I said, they're like, how do I create the 5D money? Is there like a portal? I'm like, you're the portal. It's you. Yeah. But it's about being in flow, because the 3D, we think we're conditioned, go to school, get a job, get a paycheck. Like, that's the 3D. And if we need more money, we work harder. So when I was doing my crazy Wall Street years, if we needed more money, we weren't hitting our goal. We just worked harder. We worked 20-hour days instead of 14-hour days. We just worked harder. We pushed to make it happen. But in the 5D, that doesn't work anymore. And we know it doesn't work because we know it doesn't feel good. We're instantly aware this does not feel good, but we don't know what else to do. And we have to recondition ourselves to doing nothing. That's probably the hardest thing, is to do nothing. And it's tough. And I've done that. I've gotten, with the business, things will happen. Things will go up, things will come down. You'll get stuck. And if I can see the business get really stuck somewhere, I know it's me. So it's not about going to learn a new funnel or getting a new coach. It's about learning more about me. And I'll have to sit and what I'll do is I'll just take some time. I one time was really stuck several years ago, and I took an entire week. I did nothing about the business. I think I had one call I had to take, and that was it. And I said, I'm taking the whole week off. I sat out on my deck. I read. I like to color. I colored, just to get my mind to quiet. And it took me the entire 7 days. And that following Monday at I think it was 10:30 at night, the idea fell in. Got the little download. It was like, whoop, and it hit. And when it hit, I was like, holy cow, this is it. And it changed everything. Yeah. Truly changed everything. Allowed me to create the agency, because I have an agency as well for light workers to create their businesses to that 7-figure thing. And that's what got me going. And so we have to be, and that is the hardest part, because we want to keep doing, and we get nervous. And I'm a double Taurus, so I really want to do things. I do this. I don't see it in this world to let me do it. And it's been one of my greatest lessons, is that we have to come and be to allow the 5D money to come in and to create. It's a creative process. We don't have to go get a paycheck. When I'm showing my clients how to create their spiritual businesses, I'm like, have fun with it. It is the most incredible creative process. Yes, it's business, but it's creative and it's fun. You get to be in flow. You get to be excited. And that's when we get to create money. So I like the idea of us creating money instead of earning money. It's no longer hours for money. It's creation. We get to create as much as we want.
Yeah, I like creation. And you talked about your double Taurus. Well, I'm obsessive compulsive. I have this thing that my mind does have a hard time slowing down. And what I've had to unwind is that, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? And I come from the business world, and, not like Wall Street, but it's always, okay, I have my to-do list and I've got to get it done, and I got this done. Okay, what can I do now? And my mind is constantly going. And what I found is that I consciously had to step away from that and force my mind to get quiet and let it go. And again, I think that, this behavior of feeling like I got to do also has to do with the deep-seated thing of, I don't have enough, I have to have more. And so when you can start unwinding that and you can allow yourself to be more in the flow, it's amazing how things fall into place. And I think what happens to us is that we get so in our mind and we try to force or push things that we don't see how things are coming together. And, and just like what you said, the most important thing is when you're getting in the flow, allowing the answers to come to us, which we have a hard time doing that.
Sure do.
Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that. I think that that's extremely important. So how can somebody tell when they're living in that prosperity vortex?
It's magical. It really is just magical. You'll have an idea, and just a couple days later, you get the answer. I'll be like, I really need this thing, and then it'll appear. So for me, I'm constantly hearing myself say, "Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is." Because I'll just have it. I won't even be conscious. I'll have an idea, not even be like, "I need this." I'll just go, "Oh, that would be really interesting." And then I don't know, a few days later, a week later, I'm like, "Oh, there it is. There was that thing I was thinking about or talking about or whatever, however it came in." And so that's the divine flow. And then money starts to flow in from unusual places. I'm like, "Oh, that was really interesting that money just showed up. Someone will tithe to me, or I don't know, extra affiliate money comes in that I forgot was there." And I'm like, all of a sudden money just flows, and you're like, wow, this is really fascinating. Yeah. So you'll know when you're in divine flow. It's easy. It's super easy. And then I think that freaks us out because it's too easy.
Yeah. Like, so now I'm going to really put you on the spot. So when, because a lot of times the other thing on top of people always asking about, what's my money blockage, is how do I become more intuitive? And so what you're talking about is becoming more intuitive and being more open to be able to have those ideas flow to us. So do you have any suggestion for assistance with that?
Yeah. Well, what's funny, it's not, if people could reframe it, it's not how do I become more intuitive, but how do I stop blocking my intuition? Mm-hmm. Because if we can start to see that we're all intuitive, we're all empaths. It's funny to me, sometimes I'll be, I do live events and stuff all the time, and someone will be like, "I'm an empath." I'm like, we're all empaths. We just aren't allowing it to come in because we're so caught in the 3D. So I think if we can begin to think of what do I have to not do versus what do I have to do? If we can flip it around. So instead of what do I have to do to become more intuitive? What do I have to not do to allow it to come in? So it's the being. It goes back to the being. It goes back to meditation. It goes back to being quiet. And if we can remember that we don't know what this world is. We think we know. We don't really know. We don't know. Are we in a hologram, or are we in some, little pod somewhere? Is it, are we in a dome? We have no idea. We think we know. There's certain things they tell us so that we think we know what we think we know, but we don't really know. So I'm like, if we can remember that we don't even know what in the heck this is, we have no idea, but we can know and understand that everything that comes into our reality is for us to expand our consciousness. So whenever there's contrast, there's an expansion of consciousness. So if we can just look at everything that comes in as like, ooh, this is my ability and my opportunity to expand my consciousness, then we can start to see things differently. And then we don't feel like we have to do as much, because you could step back and go, oh, look at that happen. Oh, that was really interesting. Okay, that's here to expand my consciousness. What is the thing that I shouldn't do or maybe do so that my consciousness expands? And if we're constantly reaching for a higher level of consciousness, that's when everything becomes easier. That is part of the prosperity vortex, is expanding your prosperity consciousness and your consciousness around everything. And we begin to do that, that's when it becomes easy. So we can say, okay, I wanted this thing and it didn't happen, and you get frustrated. Well, the emotion's the key for you to stop and to look and be like, okay, this is interesting. My emotions are a little signal that I am disconnecting from source, that my consciousness is stuck. What do I have to do to shift that so that my consciousness can expand? And when you do that, everything opens up for you. So I don't know if that totally answered it, but I think that was like, and it's around, because there's not really an answer. There's not like a go do this.
Well, it was actually a really good answer, because, it's really, the whole time you were talking, I was like, 5D. That's where we're moving to, is being able to stay in that place of flow. And, the more that we shift and change those belief systems and those little stories that we tell ourselves, and jumping back into that panic mode or whatever, the attachment to whatever you think that the outcome should be, and being able to be flexible and readjust and allow things, oh, okay, well, maybe my idea in my head isn't exactly the way the universe planned. So maybe we need to change our direction a little bit and allow things to come to us a little bit more. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And, it's this whole thing, it's called surrender. And how hard it is to do that. And again, like we talked about earlier, having to constantly keep going back. You think you got it taken care of, and then something comes up again, and then you have to readdress it again. And then it's like the 50th time, you're like, well, when am I going to get this? It's part of it, because you said earlier, it's multi-layered. It's not just tied into one way that we perceive things. There's so many different layers that are tied into how we live our lives and how we're conditioned to stay in our brains and live that way. And then thinking about letting that go is really a struggle for people. Yeah. Welcome to the human realm. It's being a human.
We have to remember that is being human. That is the experience, because it feels like we're always reaching for the next thing. It's like, no, this is the experience. This is what we're supposed to go through and enjoy and learn from and expand from.
Yeah. So what are some practical steps that people can take and, to start aligning themselves with that vortex?
I think it's probably, was it easy? It's not easy. It's easy, but it's a challenge. Let's put it that way. Yeah. It's simple, but it's simple, but not necessarily easy. The simple thing is just become a master of you. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking? What are your feelings? Your feelings, your emotions are little beeps for you, right? That's a little like radar system. Like, here's a situation that you need to expand your consciousness from. And so it's about having an awareness of you. And they've done so much in this world to disconnect us from ourselves, so that we're kind of dumbed down. They've dimmed our light in so many ways, whether it's technology or medication or the food we eat. Everything they've done is to dim us down and to weaken our connection. So the more you can do to take care of your body, because the prosperity vortex is the balance of mind, body, and spirit. That your body is healthy, that, if you can I don't put any medications in my body for anything. And my eating is, I'm so aware, I'm constantly researching about whether it's seed oils or whatever the heck they're doing to us now, like being aware of that so that you can keep your body clean. Because when you can keep your body clean, your mind becomes clean. Mm-hmm. And you can pay attention, and you'll have new awarenesses of things that you didn't have before, because you have a clear mind. Yeah. And they've done everything that they can to keep our mind fuzzy and keep us disconnected. That's what they're trying to do. So we have to take that into our own hands and be like, okay, what do I have to do to be the clearest I can be so that I can have the awareness of who I am? Yeah. Because if we're not clear, then we don't even know we're doing the insane things that we're doing or saying the things or those stories that are running through our heads, because there's so much, contaminants around us that we are not aware. So if we can just work through our own body, that's a perfect start. And then we have a greater awareness and pay attention to those emotions to go, oh, there's something here, and be excited about the fact there's something there for you to expand from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I agree, and I'm speechless. Obviously, the words are not coming out of my mouth, but I do think that everything that you're saying, we've been conditioned this ways for thousands and thousands of years, and it's just this continual process of carrying on the way that we've lived as human beings. And we're at this time moving into this fifth dimensional energy, this awakening is that shifting and being more aware of how we're being controlled in different ways. And it doesn't mean, and I always see, for some crazy reason, I'm seeing like the Transformers or something. I don't know why, but these little robots coming in and controlling us. There's so many different things that our belief systems that have been ingrained in us that we're not even aware of. But like you said, the second that you start having that little knot in your stomach of, I can't afford this, or I can't have this, or, people that have a lot of money are mean, or, these little things that we don't even recognize that are ingrained in us until we start paying attention. We start paying attention to our language. We start paying attention to how our body reacts when we're talking about these things, money and things that are related to that. But also, I think that it's important to recognize, you said at the very beginning about enjoying your job. And, and being able to recognize that if you're not happy in your job, maybe there might be a different direction that you need to go in. And this is also what I've noticed in the fifth dimension transition, is that so many people are recognizing that they're not fitting in their jobs anymore, and people are wanting to quit their jobs and do things differently, but they're afraid to because it's their security.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Having done that, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and so we do understand it. But I think that what you're saying is that you don't have to stand in fear about making these changes. And how can you help support somebody or help them see a way that it is safe or it's okay for them to make these major life changes?
Well, we have to remember that when we're connected with source and we really follow our intuition, we're completely taken care of. See, this is where we get in that fear thing. And I know when I went to leave Wall Street, so I had co-created this company with 9 partners, and my soul was screaming at me. I was eating too much, drinking too much, hair was falling out, wasn't sleeping. I was like, I got to get out. But I was like in the top 2-3% of earners in the country. And I was like, what do I do? How am I going to make a living? What does this look like? And what's amazing, I was in so much fear that fear, I waited 6-7 months before I decided to officially announce that I was leaving. From the moment that Source made it so clear that I had to move, I was sat in fear. And that fear cost me over $3 million because the market started to turn. It was 2008 and I didn't get the payout that I was going to get from leaving, blah, blah, blah. So the fear cost me money, but ultimately it was to take me on the journey to gain more trust. And as I had more trust, and things would just open up, and I'm like, oh, this is what it's all about. So it's all about that learning and that trusting, but it is trust. It's at the end of the day, we all know that. Trust your intuition, trust your gut, trust your connection with source, trust yourself. Mm-hmm. People don't trust themselves. I think that's why people don't normally set goals, big goals, because they don't trust themselves, because they have probably let themselves down so many times in the past. They just go, oh, well, I'm going to do it again. but honor yourself. Like, we're so powerful. Everyone listening to this, you're such a powerful, creative being. Trust that and just take the step and just go. And is it terrifying? Sure. And are you going to screw it up at some point? Absolutely. Are you going to have a series of failures? I love failures because I just learned something new. But is that going to happen? Yes. Yeah. Someone not going to like you? Yes. Is someone going to say oh my gosh, the people that said I was insane for leaving Wall Street, like, that was nuts. Like, a bunch of friends who I thought were friends were like, I can't believe you're doing this. What are you doing leaving? And I knew I had to, but are they going to say you're crazy? Probably. But find the group of people that can hold you in your highest light, see where you're supposed to go, and will support you on that path, because you can do it. We can all do whatever we want. We just have to find the right people to support us so that we can remember how powerful we are.
Right. Well, and you also touched on a really key important part, is that those people that you were working with are in one way of thinking, which is their own fear and their own conditioning. And that's why they're putting that on you, that you should stay, because that's where they're living at that time too. And probably coming back to you later, 20 years, and saying, gosh, I wish I would have left. The ulcer in my stomach from the stress, the heart attack that I had, and all of those fun things. But I want to touch on one more thing. And you talked about setting goals. So how do you feel? What's the difference between setting goals and maybe like a vision board, or manifesting something? How does all that tie in together, and how do you use that?
So it's really interesting. I am not a vision board person. I have tried, and it just doesn't stick with me. I cut it out, put it together, and I do. And then that's just not how I operate. So I think everyone is a little different. Do they work? I think I know people, they have their list, they look at it every day, and they make it work. For some reason, for me, that doesn't quite stick. So I would say if it works for you, keep doing it. But it really comes back to the beliefs, because you can have all the vision board stuff. You can have all the dream houses and the trips and the this and the that on there, the things or the relationship you want. But if you're not working through the beliefs, none of it's going to work anyways. Same thing with the goals. You can have a goal, but if you haven't worked through the beliefs, you're stuck. I call it the glass prison. So that every belief that we have, that we've received since we came in just knowing and beautiful, and then we forgot, and then all this stuff happened, and every time something happened, there was a new brick put up, and it's a glass brick, this belief, and then another belief, and someone said you were stupid or not worthy or whatever, and we have all these glass bricks, and then we go to reach for a goal, and we can see where we want to go, but we can't go. We get caught. It's like this constant, like, hitting our head up against the glass ceiling or glass wall, and we can't see the glass prison, but it's a prison, and it's there. So we have to break down that glass prison, because you could set all the goals you want, but if you are sitting in that glass prison, it's not going to happen. So you've got to be doing the work. You've got to work with a coach some way or another to get someone to give you some insight. There's stuff that I could have never seen or done if I hadn't had coaches guiding me through the process, because we can't see our own stuff. Even if I can see it for everybody else, I can't see my own stuff.
Yeah.
And so we need that guidance.
That is absolutely correct. But vision boards don't work for me either. But and exactly as you just described it. That's exactly how I see it as well. But it's so funny, because when I do a session for somebody, I can see everything about you. But if I try to do my own records, my head gets in the way, and it's really tough to look at yourself and not see, and also catch those things that you might say until somebody says, "Did you hear what you just said?"
Yep.
Oh, okay. So I think you need somebody to help you and support you and help you, guide you through this. So let's talk about spiritual biz. Talk about what you do and the support that you provide others.
Yeah. So I love working with all levels of entrepreneurs. Like, for me, building businesses, I didn't even say this. It's actually turned out, I discovered that going through the whole Wall Street thing and whatnot, what got me there was that I actually have an intuitive gift to see a business layout. Didn't understand that till I started doing this business as a spiritual entrepreneur and helping people, because it was so easy. I'm like, well, you're going to have like 3 books and I can see the cover of the book. It's white with this. And it just unfolds for me. I can see the holes. It's amazing. And so I love to use that gift and help people. So the way I look at it is I have like levels based off of your income level as an entrepreneur, because we've got to work through those beliefs. So I have like my newbies in my light worker launchpad. And even if you've made 6 figures in your regular business, what happens is very different. You step into the spiritual role and these different beliefs around money and everything pop up, and we've got to deal with them. So I have my light worker launchpad. That's if you're new to spiritual business, that's where you come in and we help you get that business off the ground and the whole 9 yards so you can get going. And then I have a little middle tier for my entrepreneurs who are making like 3-4K a month and are reaching for that six-figure year. And then I have the agency where we help people who are probably making 50 to 75K already, because I have to know you're established. It just makes sense. You don't want to go hire an agency to do stuff for you if your business isn't already working. But we come in, we do a review, and we help create a whole process. I love funnels. I love marketing. And so I have some really amazing funnels where my clients, we just did a live event for someone the other day, an online live event, and he made $10 back for every dollar he spent on ads. And so I have a whole process where we do that through the agency and show people how to scale so they can create that 7-figure year. Because I believe every spiritual entrepreneur can easily have a 7-figure year, because of the awakening, and the people need you guys so much. It's doable for absolutely everybody.
Okay, so I'm being selfish and I'm asking this for my own because of my own curiosity. So when you start working with somebody, okay, so we work through our belief systems, but what else do you do? Do you help structure their business, how it would be more effective? If they want to do classes, can you help them create their own classes? I mean, what all do you? Can you go through everything that you provide?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll talk about the agency stuff, because that's probably people are like, what? Because the newbies, we do everything with you. We help you discover who's your soul tribe. How do you set up the business? How do you get your first clients? We have a whole thing called your first 3 client framework, all that stuff. So it's like, how do you get those first clients, get comfortable with your fee, create a transformation, all that stuff. So that happens for the newbies. And then as we expand, it is looking at the business and then going through a path of creating a client ascension, because everyone needs a client ascension. So where are you taking your client from? Where do they come in and where do they go? What does that look like for each person? And then what classes do you have and what makes the most sense? Because a lot of times too, as entrepreneurs, we get so many ideas. So I have a client right now, he loves just cranking out courses for me. And I'm like, this is lovely, but we need to stick to a client ascension, because if not, you're spending a lot of energy going wide with a lot of stuff and you're not really serving. So we have to become super clear on who your soul tribe is. We go through a whole process for that and then build the client ascension process. And once we have a client ascension process, it's in place, then it's super easy to guide people through. And in that ascension process, you've got something for everybody. You may have a $5,000 or $3,000 course. You may have a $500 course, a $47 course, and then free stuff. And then you may have a $50,000 mastermind. But it's about creating that ascension process and that it makes sense for your soul tribe to go through that process and create the abundance that's going to help you thrive and do the great energy exchange with your clients. Because when you're pricing, you're actually pricing for your clients versus you, because the more you charge, the better the clients and they'll show up, because they're committed.
Yeah.
If you only charge $47, I have a client right now that has a $47 a month thing. And he's like, what is with these people? Because they complain more and they don't show up. And it's just the thing. We get more complaints than the people that are paying him $20,000 or even $3,000, because those people are committed. They show up and they're getting the results that they want to get. Yeah. So it's different.
Well, and the reason why I wanted to kind of touch into this is because a lot of us, and I know that this is just the average listener that has financial blockages, but I also want to talk to the people that, it may not only be just a spiritual business, but even starting any kind of a business, so I think that a lot of times we have these ideas and these things that come to us, but we don't know how to implement them. And so sometimes we need help in figuring out how to implement the plan and then be able to guide us, because most people like us, it's spiritual people, we may have a, everyday experience, but we may not have the experience or the education to go from the beginning through the process to create and then have the product. And so that's always helpful. So thank you for providing that service. And
and I like you kind of touched on too. I even will work with people. I call them high frequency entrepreneurs. So what if you're an entrepreneur and you're not a spiritual coach, you don't have a spiritual business, but you want to bring that element into your business. And so we also have a process we go through with them too. So how do you have I've had clients that are doctors that want to bring that, like they're, have their own dermatology business. And we bring in that spiritual element, or a marketing company, so that they can still have that feeling of being in alignment with who they are, even though they don't necessarily have a spiritual business. So that all comes together.
That makes me happy. That's, again, and I've had this privilege of watching people evolve into this new dimension, and you're assisting with that service. And so thank you for being you and doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up. So what would be the last message that you would want to share with people?
Really just to remember how powerful you are. We forget. We get caught in this 3D world. It's been set up for us to forget how amazing we are. So just remember how powerful you are. You get to create whatever reality you want. Whatever reality you want, remember that. You get to have it however you want it. So you just have to step into your power of that, though, and remember, be like, oh, wait, I can change this however I want, and not get sucked into what we've been conditioned to think we can or can't do.
Great. So with that being said, because I think everybody should call you, how do people get in touch with you? And also, you do have a podcast, which is how I met you. So can you go through all of the things, what all you provide, and then plus how people can contact you as well?
Yep. So I would say if you're a newbie, the place to go would be spiritualbizchallenge.com. I do a live event every month. I have one coming up soon. And so every month I do, like, whether it's a 1 day, like 4-hour workshop, or I do it over 3 days, every month I'm helping you get a clear over what does it look like for you. So that would be spiritualbizchallenge.com. You can go register for the next event. And then if you're further along in the process, you're like, wait a minute, you can listen to the podcast, which is the Spiritual Biz with Kimberly Maska podcast, or just reach out through kimberlymaska.com. We're in the midst of a website redo. We've been doing some branding stuff. So just know there may not see everything you need, but we're rebranding everything for Spiritual Biz because we just got the domain for that. So we acquired that. So that's all being redone, but you can still find me at kimberlymaska.com and find a way to get in and ask your questions and see, like, what does this agency stuff look like? Or if you're a high frequency entrepreneur going, how do I bring in this amazing feeling of 5D stuff into my 3D business? We'll help you with that too.
Great. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your information. It's so valuable. So thank you.
You're welcome. I love it. I was going to talk about this all day long. So thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you. And for everybody watching, we'll see you next time. Thanks.